It's often said that the United States and Great Britain are two countries divided by a common language, meaning that our two cultures are so similar that we can accidentally overlook differences in the use of language, because we are familiar with the terms and may not take different context into account the way we would if we were working to interpret something said in a language like French or Korean. With languages wholly different from our own, we are naturally prone to pay close attention to how each phrase is used according to the native speaker and defer to them on definitions. A very similar phenomenon of confusion due to proximity exists in the study of the classical past, particularly of Greece and Rome. But instead of being present in language, as no one on Earth spoke English at this time, this phenomenon manifests in political terminology, in the language employed to define concepts, like virtue, morality, and even religion. We have been so influenced by Rome and have adapted so many aspects of their ideas that we even often employ Latin when discussing these concepts, creating a false impression that our cultural values align with their Roman antecedents. But though Romans constantly employed terms like freedom, libertas, and piety, pietas, that would not seem out of place in modern political discussions. But what was actually meant by these words is so radically different from our modern definitions that when they are invoked by traditionalists who seek to marshal the legacy of the classical past to support modern political causes, all they do is illustrate how ignorant these traditionalists are of the actual dimensions of ancient thought and ideology. For example, in modern parlance, freedom is seen as something all should share in equally, and that we have inherent human rights which cannot be trampled on by others. Our freedom ends when it begins to impede the freedom of another. The Romans would not have agreed with this modern expression of freedom. In their society, freedom was by definition limited. Not everyone could access it. In fact, in order to truly be free, one needed to have the liberty to oppress others. The Romans loved freedom, just as we moderns do. They just meant something else by it. Similarly, their concept of piety would be alien to us. While many politicians and leaders rely on religion to provide moral grounding for their beliefs and praise it for helping people become more fulfilled as individuals, the practice of Roman religion came with no real moral code attached, other than a need to respect the gods. They did not support the practice of religion for its own sake because it made people better. Rather, it was seen as protecting the state from divine wrath, and the personal dimension of religion was a mere afterthought. It is worth reflecting on these differences not just to ensure that we use terms accurately, but because these beliefs were so baked into the Roman worldview and understanding of reality that they transmit to us the core of Roman ideology. Understanding the Romans requires understanding their ideology, knowing the things that they believed, which were so uniformly accepted due to their unique cultural conditioning that they wouldn't have even recognized the beliefs as contentious. Things like the necessity of slavery or the inherent inferiority of women fall under this definition because they were not addressed at length in our ancient sources, despite being key features of Roman society. In fact, it is precisely because these beliefs were so pervasive and so nearly universally shared that there was never a reason to formulate a grand defense of them. It may seem anachronistic to apply a modern word like ideology to the thought processes and mental landscapes of the ancient Romans, but it is necessary, because to deny that the Romans had an ideology is to deny in effect that they were human. We all rely on ideology as a mental shortcut to interpret reality, as well as to unconsciously shape our desires, beliefs, and actions, often in ways that can be contradictory and self-defeating. There is no truly epistemically neutral worldview, and one of the most important aspects of studying history, to me, is that by recognizing the culturally conditioned values of other societies and how their ideologies shaped their thinking, we are better equipped to recognize its impact in our own lives, and hopefully, find ways to break free from its grip. Key to this series is the idea that many aspects of history can be understood only when we realize that many of the core motivations of the Romans, such as a personal desire for safety and security, a hunger for social approval, and the fear of death, motivated them in the same way these forces shape our own lives. We view and interpret them through different cultural lenses, but the same brute facts of the human condition remain. In this sense, the series follows in the footsteps of R.G. Collingwood's influential work, the idea of history, as we try to reconstruct past thinking, to go beyond a narrative understanding of the events and into the thoughts that caused them. I appreciate the work of many YouTube historians that provide wonderful insight into the battles, statesmen, and events of Roman history, but narrative alone explains nothing, and historical events can never truly repeat. Roman ideas, however, still rear their heads in our modern world. We can neither combat them nor amplify them if we don't even know what they are. A fish doesn't know that it is wet, but one could never understand a fish without water. In uncovering the details of Roman ideology and learning the things that they believed that were so fundamental that they were never actually called into question, we can begin to actually put ourselves into the minds of the ancient Romans and realize what made them the peculiar and unique expression of humanity that their culture was. It is the goal of this series to identify the aspects of Roman ideology that are often elided over in pop history recountings of their civilization. This will be done not just to draw distinctions between us and the Romans, but to illustrate why those who hold them up as a banner to which we must return are often speaking of a fictionalized Rome that bears no resemblance to the society that actually existed and the civilization that we should all be thankful died. But it is not my goal to unfairly denigrate the Romans. Instead, by shining a light on their moral shortcomings and the flawed aspects of their ideology, we can better appreciate the aspects of modernity that have seen a steady evolution in respect for universal rights and shared human dignity. For the seed of this progress that has led to so many of the fruits of modernity was planted in Rome. And while no Romans lived to see the effect that thousands upon thousands of incremental changes had in bringing about the comparatively more humane world we enjoy today, they played a role in creating our world. And by understanding this, we can better understand our own ideology, as well as our place in the long march of history, as we seek to place ourselves among the millions of thankless heroes who have been forgotten by history, but left the world a slightly better place than they found it.